house around. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. Welcome to our online panel. Feel at home. We're united across geographical areas, across languages, across nations and continents, but united, we are all on this virtual space right now, in this virtual room. So feel at home. Welcome to our SOS Children's Village, Hermann Gmeiner Academy panel discussion on the empowerment of young people in Africa. We're discussing challenges and possible ways to support the empowerment work that's going on the continent, most especially from the perspective of SOS Children's Villages. What SOS Children's Village is and does, we will explain a little bit later. Right here where I'm sitting is the Hermann Gmeiner Academy. Hermann Gmeiner was the founder of SOS Children's Villages, and we have an academy in his name here in Innsbruck, right in the middle of the Alps. We will also very soon explain what Hermann Gmeiner Academy is. But please, before we continue, let me point out one or two important things that are very, very important. Please remain muted as long as we request. Don't be offended if we ask you if you have questions, if you have comments, kindly put them in the chat box. My colleague Sylvia Rechberger and Christian Ronald, who are doing the moderation with me, will handle the questions and direct them to whomever the question is directed to. Please remain muted. Our panelists, when you want to talk, please unmute. Towards the end, we will give the floor to everyone so that anyone who wants to make a comment or ask his or her question directly should then do so. My name is Walter Waltz Anyanwu. I work with the Hermann Gmeiner Academy, SOS Children's Villages here in Innsbruck in Austria. Don't ask me what moved me to invite these calibers who are sitting on panel today. Perhaps as we go on, you will discover yourself. So while you mute yourself, please, the recording will be going on automatic, or my colleague Sylvia will check, if not, to see if she can activate it. As I said, if you have questions as we go on, comments, please write into the chat. On another note, I'm delighted to say thank you to Dr. Mrs. Margaret Nkrumah, the former Vice President of SOS Children's Villages, who made it possible that we could have Her Excellency Ambassador Arikana Chiyombori today here. Without her, I don't think I would have gotten to such a caliber. So Margaret, thank you so much. And also thank you to your ambassador friend who made it possible that we could reach to Madam Ambassador. Now our time is very limited. We have 1.5 hours. So we will try to make judicious use of this time. How are we going to proceed? We proceed that now I give a brief agenda of what we have. After that, the first thing on the agenda is introduction of the panelists. I'll give a brief introduction of the panelists. After that, Christian, my colleague, will introduce SOS Children's Villages and Hermann Gmeiner Academy, very, very brief. Then after that, we go over to Ramatoloye in Dakar to present to us a brief sketch, just a very brief sketch of what SOS Children's Villages does pertaining to our topic today. After that, we move on to questions and answers. I have prepared few questions, just very, very few, for our panelists. I will throw the question to them. They will do justice to the questions, and during which any person who has a comment or question to make, please put into the chat. And as I said, towards the end, we make the floor open. Thank you so much. Now, brief introduction of the panelists. As I said before, we have Her Excellency Ambassador Mrs. Dr. Arikana Chiyombori. You're welcome, Madam Ambassador. She She's the former African Union ambassador to the United States, and she is the founder and president of the African Diaspora Development Institute. I think when she'll be talking, then she would take the leave to explain these things a little bit. You're highly welcome. The next person on panel is Ms. Itumeleng Ralebitso. She grew up in SOS Children's Villages in Lesotho, a degree holder in business administration from Asheshe University in Ghana, and she's a wonderful artist. I enjoy her music. And currently she's working with DHL Go Teach program, a youth empowerment program from SOS Children's Villages. Tumi, you're welcome. Please kindly mute, kindly mute. The next panelist is Mr. Gebre Exabeha Gebre, all the way in Boston. Grew up in SOS Children's Villages in Ethiopia. And he is currently the president of the Louis Gmeiner Foundation. And this foundation has built up computer laboratories, scientific laboratories, educational facilities across Africa. A gentleman who followed the footsteps of the founder of SOS and is really doing it in a very grand way. You're welcome, Gabriel. And we have Ramatola Yendao. She's a colleague of mine, works with SOS in Senegal in Dakar. You're welcome. And she's a sociologist, as I was meant to understand. So as we can see, we have strong people on the panel. Feel free to place your questions because the whole exercise will be lively from the questions you ask. I cannot ask all the questions from here. So you're welcome. Now I hand over to Christian Honnold, please. What is SOS Children's Village? Who are we and what do we do? And what's Hermann Gmeiner Academy? Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Hello and warm welcome to this honorable circle of well-experienced people around the world. Let me start with a question. What is the all-embracing, the overarching purpose of all our efforts as, one could say, we are all social workers, aren't we? I give you a couple of seconds to individually reflect on that question. All our efforts, what is our purpose, overarching purpose on all our efforts in this world? And after a couple of seconds, I would like to share my personal perspective, my personal opinion on that. Take a couple of seconds. Yeah, my personal view on that is how to build best networks on eye level to make our world of tomorrow a bit better than it is today. Strong, trustful relationships are building the ground for these networks. And SOS Children's Villages puts many, many efforts into, providing a highly professional frame where these relationships can grow. That's my personal view on that. And I'm very, very happy to be part of these efforts in my role as a co-worker of the SOS Children's Village Network, and in my particular role as managing director of the Hermann Gmeiner Academy, which is member association of this worldwide SOS Children's Village Federation. The Hermann Gmeiner Academy bonds, among other branches, an education branch, an education department. And one of our formats, in cooperation with the HROD of SOS Children's Village International, is what we call development cooperation talks. And Walter, my colleague, my friend, is responsible for this format and will guide you through the next 1 hour and 15, 20 minutes. And by this, I hand over and back to him again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. Without wasting much time, we'll now go over to Rama to give us a little bit insight into what SOS does in relation to our topic today. Let me share the presentation for her.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Walter. Great. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to share briefly with all of you some of the different programs and initiatives we are actually running out in Africa regarding youth empowerment. Just to start, I would like to talk a little bit about the context. As you know, in Africa, actually, young people are facing many challenges. To cite some of them, we have a prevalence of poverty, lack of quality of social services. We also have a very high unemployment rate. According to the World Bank, actually, young people account about 60% of all unemployment persons in Africa. So the statistics are very high. We're also facing access to quality education and skills development and slow economic development too. And as an effect, we've seen that there is exclusion of disadvantages and marginalized young people from the labor market. We have generational cycle of poverty, breakdown on social cohesion, and unfortunately also very high level of crime and violence among young people. And in SOS, our target group, young people we are serving are the ones who have lost or are at risk losing parental care, women and disabled. And unfortunately, they are among the most vulnerable and are facing all the challenges I have listed. We have identified some needs, and to just list some of them, we are working and we would like to support young people to access to opportunities in the labor market. We also are providing opportunities for social connections, mentorships, internships, access to education and skills development, and also life skills to support self-reliance. Next. Next, please. Next slide, Walter. Thank you. And actually, in Africa, we have two regions. We have the West, Central, and North Africa region with 21 member associations. And also, we have the East and South Africa region. Regarding the number of participants, youth participants in our programs, we around 60,000 young people who are benefiting actually in SOS programs in Africa. And empowering young people is among our initiatives strategic. And that's why actually there are more resources that are being deployed to strengthen youth programs to empower young people and support them on their journey to self-reliance. We have mainly two different programs. We offer alternative care in SOS Family Care. We have foster care, we have small group homes, also youth care. And also we have family strengthening programs to prevent children from being separated from their parents or extended family. And in our family strengthening programs, we work to improve capacity of families and community to offer quality care to young children and the youth. Next. And as you see, we are facing many challenges, and hopefully we are having support, working in partnerships with corporates, with other organizations to support what we are doing actually in Africa. And we have different initiatives and programs. I will be listing just some of them. One of the most important initiatives we are running actually is Youth Can. It's a global partnership between SOS and some partners like DHL, Alliance, And the objective is to strengthen the employability of young people of our target group. We are having in Youth Can project trainings, mentorship practice, and it's also important to know that in Youth Can, digital solutions are also implemented to facilitate coaching, training of young people. And it's currently implemented in 10 countries in Africa. Next, please. We have also Go Teach. It's a project in partnership with DHL. It's really focused on education and employability for young people. And in this project, DHL employees share their time, skills with our young people to facilitate for them the transition from school to the world of work through education, training, and mentoring. And the last program I would like to talk about is also around employability, youth employability. It's Next Economy. It's funded by the EU and led by SOS Netherlands. It's a series of training, market linkages, ecosystem building activities that support youth for entrepreneurship, job creation, and actually, Next Economy is conducted in Mali, Nigeria, and Somalia. And just a few, to give an example, we have the first phase that was very successful of this project in Mali. And this year, we just started another phase of 4 years who will accompany about more than 1,000 young people. Next. Just while we finalize with this one, I would like to emphasize that youth participation is one of the key elements in our work to empower young people. And we are working a lot in SOS to improve youth participation with youth advisory groups in some national associations. We also have in a global level an international youth coalition. And Africa, some national associations from Africa are also taking part in this coalition. And just to finalize, we also work with young people to improve their capacity to be involved in advocacy at local, and global, and international level. I think this is the brief point I would like to discuss, to share in this introduction, and I remain available if you have questions, and I think we will be available to talk more and share more during the discussions later. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Walter. Can you hear me, Walter?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the concise presentation. Wow, I'm very happy to hear that 60,000 youths participate in our youth program in West and East side of Africa. The small city in which I live, Innsbruck, in the middle of the Alps, has only 120,000 people. So you're controlling half of the population of this giant city in which I live here. Congratulations. That's very excellent. Beautiful. Now it's time to hear those who have made it possible that we're here. It's now time to pose them some questions. I hope they are ready also to let us hear their voice. In asking these questions, please allow me begin with the youngest. I hope I take the privilege to think that Tumi is the youngest. I hope so. So, empowerment is an issue of the mindset. Therefore, to empower is to build up the strengths of a new consciousness. Tumi, as an aspect of your job as DHL Go Teach program coordinator, One aspect of your job is to help execute employability, strengthen internship, mentoring programs, and so forth and so forth. What is it we call DHL Go Teach program? What is it? And secondly, what is one highlight you have had that makes you say, yeah, this works really makes meaning?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Walter. I think you're right. I might be the youngest on the panel. Yeah, and I'm really excited to be here. I think Rama has done a very good job in summarizing what Go Teach is all about. So thank you so much, Rama, for that. So basically, what Go Teach does, just to add on what Rama has already said, is a CSR project or corporate social responsibility program for DHL. So there are quite a number of programs that DHL runs, and this is one of them. And this one is particularly focused on employability for young people, equipping young people with skills that they need and tools that they need to be more employable. And when we talk about employability, we're not only focused on getting a job, we're talking about even creating a job as well. So we have also programs that deal with entrepreneurship. So far we are in about 56 countries where we partner with both SOS and Teach for All partnerships. So those are the two partnerships that we work with so far. And we're quite young. It's quite a young organization. We're like 10 years now and, still growing. So that's basically what Go Teach is. But of course, if you have more questions, please do ask. And so your second question was about how, what is the one thing that makes me say yes, this is something that I love to be part of. So first of all, as Rama already said, there's a very high unemployment rate in the world. Like, this is a world challenge, and it's even worse in developing countries, especially for young people who are, the most vulnerable, I would say, like from very poor backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. And so for me to be part of people who are, bringing solutions to this kind of a big global challenge is one thing that really gives me that yes, I love to be part of this. And so one highlight for me would be, the fact that, like you said, we do a lot of internships, we do like trainings to sort of like help the young people to change their mindset about their own development, as you said. So the fact that other young people are gaining, how do I say, like one step closer to being a lot more employable or starting their own companies, and some of them are actually getting permanent employment in DHL all around the world, is one thing that makes me to be very excited to be part of this. So I hope I answered your question.
I'm thrilled. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Walter.
Yeah, helping young people change their mindset, adapt their mindset, and being proud of something that gives solution to a global problem. Gabriel, you built computer and education centers across Africa. What was your driving force, your personal motivation to start this venture? And what are one or two challenges so far encountered and well mastered?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Walter, for this opportunity. It's a privilege to be part of this panel, and I see we have a lot of people joining the conference call today. So it's a privilege to be a part of this initiative. To answer your question, I mean, first of all, I mean, I wouldn't even say I started the initiative. I think what basically happened was there was an SOS alumni who went to SOS HIC. His name is Hermann Gmeiner, and the foundation is named after him. He studied at the college in Ghana, and came to the US. He did his master's, and suddenly passed away. So in memory of his legacy, we wanted to build something. And at that time, we basically, a group of his friends who went to school with him in Ghana, and his family, basically, we sat down together and we said, what do we need to do to further his legacy? And one of the things that we said was that he was one person who had, or who knew the value of education, and he was interested in helping others. So we said, in his legacy, let's start something that would not only help him remember his name and further his legacy, but would also help our younger brothers and sisters across the globes, to be specific, in Africa. So when the first project that we did was basically, and the way we've done it, we basically team up with the SOS villages in the different countries. And our ask is basically, we go to them, we say, how can we help you help the children improve in education? And one of the things that we've found across all the villages, SOS provides a lot of opportunities, SOS provides a lot of resources, but that always could be supplemented. And one of the things that we said was, okay, why not open up computer centers, libraries, villages, and a lot of times, a lot of this SOS Children village didn't have that resource. So that's how we started the whole initiative. And the first project was done in Ghana, at the village in Tema. The second project, which I kind of started leading, was the one in Makela. I grew up in SOS Children's village, Makela, so I knew a lot of the people at the village, to work with them and get that going. Once we had completed that project, to be transparent, actually, we have a lot of people who put a lot of inputs. Even though I kind of lead this group, the work is done by so many people, especially in North America. Just to mention a few names, Aliyu Barry, I think it was class of 1998 from AGIC. He takes a big role in leading this group. Ruth Nduta, who is here, also helps in there. So anyway, so it's a lot of SOS AGIC alumni who've come together to try to effect change and then sort of pay it forward. And then so we've completed a third project in the Gambia about 2 years ago. Right now we are sort of in the process of coming up with the fourth project. Hopefully it will be in Kenya, but we are basically exploring the different options that we have. And for us, it's basically supplementing the great work that SOS does in helping the children across the globe, and then to be specific, across Africa. One of the things that you mentioned, like the challenges, right? I think that one of the biggest challenges is, we're not on the ground, right? So we lead in terms of, coming up with a project idea and funding it. But the execution of that project is usually by somebody on the ground. So for us, the challenge is, finding the right person and having that that clear line of communication and transparency, and making sure that all the resources that we're putting in is put for the right purpose. So that probably is one of the biggest challenges. The second challenge is even identifying the project itself, right? There's a lot of need. So how do you choose one village, SOS village, over the other? And the way we've approached it, maybe it might not be the most ideal way, but the way we've identified and kind of approached this issue is, among us, if there's somebody who is from a very particular country, we want that person to take the lead. And this is for sort of two reasons, right? One, this person had the connections that exist on the ground in the village. And second, that person understands the culture and the inner workings of the, of the country and the village. So that's how we've approached it. And the third one is basically finance, right? Whatever project we do, it's going to be constrained by how much funding we can raise. And we are relatively small. We haven't done huge projects. Our projects tend to be, I would say between 20 to 30,000 US dollars project. So not a huge project, but I think for us, it's, choosing projects that are very impactful. and can change the lives of children.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. $30,000, not too much. Well, it's too much, really. It's really much. And I can imagine the impact when properly executed, such amount of money can have on the life of people. And in memory of someone, taking forward the legacy someone set up, I so much like that. That is very, very excellent. And it needs lots of people to manage it and to succeed. And HGIC, Hermann Gmeiner International College in Ghana, I think you must be proud having two of your candidates speaking here today. And really, this is also a legacy. So, in memory of a legacy, we have someone who is with us here who has already set wonderful legacies. I've been following her on YouTube for the past 8 months or 9 months, and I got so thrilled. And I told myself, my dream is to one day have this woman and engage her in a conversation. I thought I was joking the day I made that statement, and it has come true today. It's all about legacy. She has already set up a legacy that is unbeatable. Your Excellency, you founded the African Development Diaspora Development Institute. It is an initiative to unite people with African origin around the world to build up the foundation for development in Africa. Where does this passion come from? What is your vision with this movement for Africa?
Thank you, Walter. The organizers of SOS, to all the wonderful participants on this program today, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me. This is indeed an important program, a program that is discussing a subject that is so dear to my heart, and that is the discussion about our youth, our future, the future of the continent, which is in the hands of our children. We have a responsibility as your elders to guarantee you that when we are long gone, we will always have our shoulders. And while we are still here, we also need to reassure you that we will always have your back. The issue of African youth is a very sad story. It's a journey that's been in the making for over 600 years. In order for us to begin to address the issue of the death of the African youth, we must understand our history. As I listened to all the wonderful work that all of you are doing, I can't help but think that we need to take it another notch and take the conversation to another level. I'll park that particular aspect for a second, and let me go to the issue of ADDI, African Diaspora Development Institute, and how I came to the idea of creating this institute. When I first came to Washington as the African Union Ambassador to the United States, like I often say, I came to Washington with a clean slate. I wasn't sure what a medical doctor was going to do in Washington, DC. I wasn't sure why Madam Zuma would choose a medical doctor who's minding her own business in some little town in the United States to pick up, pack my bags and come to Washington, DC. It's only now that I understood where she was coming from. Some of you may not know, but Madam Zuma is a pediatrician prior to becoming a politician. And so she understood that as a medical doctor, I did not know that we are actually practicing diplomacy in the exam room from one patient to the other. Picture yourself, in the first room, you have an old lady who just lost her husband. She's grieving, so you gotta join her in that emotion. And when you finish that exam room, you wipe your tears, you walk into the next exam room, there's a young lady who just came back from her honeymoon, and she has a her photographs to share with you. So now we're supposed to celebrate and laugh and joke, and completely opposite emotion. And then you go into the third room, there's a woman who weighs 400 pounds, and she looks at you and says, "Doc, do you think I'm fat?" And so you are constantly changing your emotions over a very short period of time, but at the same time, you convey the messages that provide healing when it's all said and done. Well, in healthcare, we look at preventing people from getting sick. Should they get sick, we keep them from going into the hospital. Should they end up in the hospital, we try to keep them from going into the intensive care. Should they end up in the intensive care, we try to keep them from dying. It's all about prevention. But diplomacy is much the same way. It's about using words and communication to keep us from going into conflict. Should we end up in conflict, we try to use, again, words and conversations to keep us from going into war. And should we end up in war, we still use communication, effective communication, and words to end the war. So diplomacy, very much like healthcare, diplomacy is the healthcare of international relations. It's about prevention. It's about using words. But in order for us to be good diplomats, in order for us to go to the table as equal, we must truly be equal. So what I found difficulties with as a diplomat, as an African diplomat, is going to the table while others are on the table. I was under the table. It was very difficult for me. How do I engage in diplomatic conversations when I am under the table, waiting for crumbs to fall? That's a tough thing, tough situation to deal with. And so with that understanding, I began to understand, how did we end up here as Africans? How come these conversations continue to take place in such an unfair manner? And so it is, I began to speak about some of our history. I began to speak about some of the issues that are going on in Africa today, which leads us to why the youth in Africa are where they are today. Some of you will know the one issue that I felt that no matter the consequences, it is an issue that I needed to bring to the attention of the many people I felt were not aware of it. And those are some of the treaties that African countries were forced to sign as we were receiving our quote unquote independence from our former colonizers. The biggest one being the French and the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, which was forcing African heads of states to give up over $500 billion a year to France. And the monies, once deposited with France, the funds never came back. So as I sat back and started looking at, we the Africans considered poor, why are we giving $500 billion to France? And then what amazed me even more is the realization that most people were not even aware of it. And so while we struggle to make ends meet, while we struggle to provide quality education and healthcare for our children, we're at the same time giving $500 billion to a developed nation. That was so unfair. And how it was allowed to go on for 60 years boggled my mind. And it turned out that it boggled the minds of many who were not aware of it. So while we talk about helping our youth, we must use diplomacy to point out some of these atrocities that are being thrown and meted to the Africans. We must point out some of the inequalities. We must point out the multinationals and some of the games that are being played. The ultimate result is that trillions of dollars are being siphoned out of Africa, and very little comes back as aid. So as we work with governmental organizations, as we work with NGOs, I think it's also important that we point out some of these atrocities, some of these abuses that are going on in Africa, that the individuals in some of these roles can also begin to address, to say, if only X amount of money that's coming out of Benin to go to France could stay in Benin, we could do a little bit more for our children. If only X amount of money that's going to such and such a country, that's coming out of such and such a country from multinationals through tax havens, maybe we could have just a little bit more money to do more, create more jobs, improve our healthcare system. Just to put things in perspective for you, the African Union has said Africa is going to need $100 billion a year for the next 10 years to completely build out Africa's infrastructure. $100 billion a year for the next 10 years. That's only 2 years of what France was taking out of 14 African countries. I'm saying this to say, let's put things in perspective. Because once we begin to see things in perspective, when we go
that each person just uses 1 minute or 1.5 just to answer a question. Let's see if you can hit at the time and cover many of the questions that's also coming in. Gabriel, before we come to you, there is a burning question that is addressed to Her Excellency. This question has come up a second time, but let me pick the second one instead of the first one because they're almost the same. What is the African Diaspora Development Initiative doing to support African youth? Do you have some nice projects on that?
Yes,
Very
actually,
briefly.
if you go to our website, we are going to soon begin opening ADDI offices in various countries. By now, we were supposed to have opened offices in 4 countries, but because of COVID, our program has been disrupted. But our entry into every country starts with the Youth and Women Empowerment Program. We are raising funds to give no interest loans ranging from $500 to $1,000 to youth and to women to start small businesses. So yes, the youth and women are at the forefront of everything that we do.
Thank you so much. Wow, that is excellent. Oh my God, I think the scientist in you has really pumped out that one. Thank you so much. This is a comment, not a question. I work in health research, and adolescents and youth form a significant portion of the population I recruit from. In my experience, getting young people involved in research, not only as research subjects and participants, is to improve their understanding of the advantages of research. Thank you for that. So one of our approaches has been to form youth advisory boards. These advisory boards operate in a capacity similar to that of an institutional review board. We seek their input during the development of study protocols and in the development of health interventions. While it does not immediately create employment opportunities, it does help nurture a support system, and it creates opportunities to understand their own needs and formulate opportunities to advocate for themselves, at least in the small area of health research. Thank you so much. I wish you can write a book on that. I think it would be a very great methodological treatise. And it joins to a question I wanted to ask Gabriel. Thank you so much. Perhaps, Gabriel, you take a lead from that question and look into this. We live in a global village ruled by technology. What are the chances and opportunities you see for young people in Africa in this field? Since you build up libraries, computer laboratories, and all this, I think this goes to you.
Okay, thank you, Walter. I think that's a very interesting question. I think, as you said, we live in a global, global technology where physical distance is no longer a requirement for some types of jobs. So if you look at it, especially right now with COVID-19, almost everybody, I would say, close to 80–90% of the workforce is working from home. What that means is that if you are technologically connected, your physical presence is not as required as it used to be before. So I think in terms of it creating opportunity, I think it might take a few years, but I think in terms of outsourcing, a lot of companies now understand that their employees don't need to be in the office. So what that means is that if you can have the right infrastructure, if you have the right connectivity, you could be one of Africa, any company. So that is an opportunity for a lot of African countries to invest in the infrastructures. And in the future, a lot of the employment does not need to come from domestic employers. You can have national companies hiring your youth. And this topic about youth, the youth has a lot of potential. The youth can learn. The youth is very good with how to use technology. And since there's a lot of demand for that, I think the next frontier for mass employment is going to be in that technological space. So I think for me, I think it is a huge opportunity for Africa. And I think a lot of, all African countries, all governments need to be very, very careful in how they plan and how they strategize for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Because with the right, as I said, with the right level of internet connectivity, we could be the next India. There's a reason why India is the IT hub. A lot of companies have started with IT, but now that people have understood that you could work remotely, any type of job, Africa could be the next hub for, it could be HR staffing, it could be any type of remote work. So I would say if we invest in the right technologies, I think there's a huge opportunity for the youth employment going forward. Hey, Walter, you're on mute.
Thank you so much for reminding. Carried away. Investing in the right opportunities, I think ADDI is addressed there, because if you go to their homepage, as the Madam Ambassador said, you will really find their plan and intentions, what they're planning there to do. That is very excellent. To me, always lead your space and influence others. We are proud of you. That's a statement from National Director from Nigeria. And thank you, Her Excellency, Dr. Ambassador Jumbori, for your presentation. We also have a question here, which let me pause it. Let's do justice to questions that come in. Is addressed to the ambassador and also to Tumi. Please check it if you have anything to say there. I just read it as it is. I don't want to interpret. How are you ensuring that socially marginalized groups of young people, example, the LGBT youth living with disabilities, youth in conflict with the law, are not being left behind? Can you make any brief statement there, either of you or both of you? Thank you.
So I'll go first. Thank you so much for that question.
Make it brief, please. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. So the thing is, to be honest with you, there is that huge gap. Okay, we cannot deny that there's a very huge gap when it comes to the marginalized and for example, I think majority of the people in this conference alone are like people who can access devices, people who are probably in the urban areas, but you have people out there who actually need this kind of services, but that they're not getting. Okay, so the thing is, it's there, but we need to be very intentional about going into those spaces and doing that. And for us, maybe as what we are doing at DHL to try and break that or make that gap smaller, is to find ways that we can reach even to those in the rural areas. For example, using the youth can that Rama was talking about, where you just need a device and we can connect you to this platform where you can talk to anyone from, across the world, and we can be involved in this kind of conversations. So we need to be, like what Gabriel said, we need to be very intentional about the devices that we deploy around the world, to ensure that we do not leave those who need this kind of services behind. So yes, we are trying, but I think we need to step up even a little better. Yeah.
I can also add to that to say, in addition to what we could provide to them in material terms, we also need to look at legislation when it comes to those who are marginalized, the LGBTQs, the disabled, and also we need to look at attitudes and cultural norms. I'm reminded, as you were asking the question, we had, growing up in my village, we had a disabled woman who used to be tied to a tree. I just remember her, that's just where she lived. They got up in the morning, they just tied her to a tree. And everybody went on about their businesses. In the evening, they untied her and brought her back. Or they normalized it, So, and a lot of that is still going on. So there's really need for cultural reorientation and continued education. Organizations like yourself could also help in promoting tolerance. We have a long way to go as far as that's concerned. So it's really a very serious problem that needs to be addressed from the highest level in a country, and certain legislative decisions need to be made, and a strategic, deliberate program to be put in place to begin to change people's minds. But we are all guilty of continuing the marginalization of those who fall outside the norms of society. And Africa, indeed, we have a long way to go as far as that's concerned. So legislation is where it needs to begin.
Thank you so much. And I'm not an expert in that area as far as SOS work is concerned, but much as I know, we are very prominent in that advocacy. And we also faced square with the legislations of countries, but we're not shying away from it. It's also part of our advocacy work. We have a statement here. Thank you, Ambassador, for the presentation, and you for sharing and bringing and urging us to play our role. It's important that we start engaging young people early in their life to prepare them for independent living. Every youth needs support network, just like many of us. Thank you so much. It takes a village to train up a child. I think that's an African proverb, and that's also what we're doing. Thank you so much. I think from now, anyone who wants to make a statement, a voice statement, or ask a question live, please, if you check your device, there's a place you see a hand like this. Please click it so that we can see you're sharing up your hand. We can call on you to speak. I ask Christine and Sylvia, please, to be aware to that. If you see anyone raising up the hand, please indicate. So while we go for that, we are waiting and we are expecting. So while we go for that, there's a question here to Ambassador Chiyombori. How do you see the role of an international NGO like SOS Children's Villages in the future to support the youth of Africa?
Well, SOS happens to be one of the better NGOs. I have to be very realistic. Not all NGOs are good NGOs. There are some NGOs that are out there to exploit Africa, but I have to say SOS is one of the very good NGOs working on the continent. After we have analyzed the NGO and made sure that they are truly for the people, the NGOs can play a very important role in Africa, in advocacy, in education, in bridging the gap where the governments are falling short. So I think that we support the presence of NGOs. We hope that we can work towards having all NGOs that are truly there for humanitarian reasons and nothing else. We don't want NGOs that get involved in local politics. They only spoil the environment, make and confuse the people, and keep the conflicts going. So true NGOs that are truly going out to help humanity we support them, and they can play a very, very important role working in tandem with the local government.
Thank you so much. That's also the slogan of SOS Children's Villages, working in the best interest of the child. So also we work in the best interest of every community. Thank you for really emphasizing on that. That's very fine. We're still expecting and waiting. Does anyone want to speak or say something? Please indicate by raising up your hand. Before we do that, we see someone doing that. Let me ask Gabriel a question. Gabriel, please, are you still there?
Uh,
Okay.
yes.
Growing up in SOS Children's Villages and managing to come up to studying in Harvard. Looking back today, what is the most outstanding support and empowerment you received in SOS Children's Villages to make you get to such a height? Outstanding experience or something?
Oh, thank you. That's actually a very good question. You know, especially given that Mrs. Nkrumah is on this call, I would appreciate I want to say that, you know, the amount of support and the amount of work that SOS HIT does on the youth is incredible, is extraordinary. I remember when I left my SOS village in Makala and joined the school in Ghana. I barely spoke English, and obviously all the education was being given by English in English. So the amount of support that AGIC, the teachers gave me at the school was incredible. I think what SOS does for me and thousands of young children is to give them a platform to be able to fulfill their potential. And not only are you just given an opportunity to go to school, but you're given all the support system that you require to be successful. So I mean, I just happen to be on this call right now, but with like Tumi and thousands of young adults right now, we've gone through the SOS pipeline, and what SOS does is it gives you the structure and the know-how to be successful when you leave high school to go to college. And I think SOS HIC to be particular does an amazing job of preparing and making sure that young young men and women are ready to go out there and be successful. Hey, Walter, you're still on mute.
I'm very sorry. Yeah. I said thank you so much. And for the next questions, please let everyone try to be as brief as possible so that we can round up in the next 10 minutes. There is a message. Thank you, Gabriel, for the wonderful job you're doing and making the dream of your brother, Lil Jimer, come true. My question is, apart from what you're doing in areas of ICT, establishing computer labs and so on, do you have any plans, one, for knowledge transfer from the African diaspora to Africa, and two, helping bright students from Africa get scholarship opportunities abroad?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't worked in those two specific areas, but I do work with some of the groups that basically are helping open SAT centers. So I think one of the biggest challenges, in at least say in Ethiopia, is a lot of bright and very good students don't have access to resources. And in most US universities, one of the requirements is for you to have to be able to take the SAT test. And so one of the things that I've been working is, to try to work with the college board here to try to expand the number of testing sites. And then other things that I've worked with is sort of mentorship. A lot of bright students from different schools will basically send me their application essay. And then basically my role is basically to review some of the works that done and advise in the best way to apply to different schools. but nothing sort of a formal way of establishing or sort of knowledge transfer between where we are here and the folks in Africa. And I think my area of concern is building resources centers for the kids to be able to take advantage.
I think that would be a nice question for also Madam Ambassador to join, but let me first of all give someone who is raising hand. Napo is raising up hand. Let's hear another voice. After that, Her Excellency, if you like, you can say something on this knowledge transfer. Thank you so much. Napo, please. Unmute
Thank you
yourself
very
and
much.
talk here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I must say this panel discussion was really inspiring. Your Excellency, we are really inspired. I just want to ask a question with regard to young people or the who are in Africa who want to do something, but they lack the necessary tools and certain knowledges to actually impact the other youth. For example, you find youth who are trying to start NGOs but do not have access to funding and access to people who can connect them with other platforms, or they don't even have the infrastructure to create platforms to register NGOs and make a proper impact, like you said, Your Excellency, that there are NGOs that they are quite selfish and they are meeting their own trying to meet their own needs and trying to make profit out of Africa, but there are young people who are trying to make that impact, but they are not connected, or they are not well educated enough to know how to source funding from elsewhere. And so my question is, how do we get to support those young people? What would be your advice? I think this question can go both to you, Your Excellency, and Gebre. How do we support those young people who want to make an impact and connect them and empower them to be able to source funding? Thank you very much.
What we were planning to do as we enter into each country, opening our ADDI offices, for every youth who would have received our no interest loan, they were automatically going to be given a mentor who would be a diaspora in their field, another youth. So everybody was going to be partnered with a mentor who was going to be responsible for making sure that whatever it is, the small business they are involved in, we make sure that they get the full support that they need, including a small amount of financial within a year, should they need it. So every woman who's going to receive the small no interest loans, and every youth would be partnered to a diaspora in that field who would be their mentor. So, but by so doing, we're also opening the doors for dialogue to then say, engage more youth, to reach out to others who have some resources and maybe know-how. But let's say this, let me make this one issue clear, that the learning is both ways. It's not a one-way track. Even the people in the diaspora, believe it or not, they need to learn from the people at home. Because the tendency is for us to think, just because the young people are in Africa, we know more than they do. No. It's a two-way process. We all need to learn from each other. So what I encourage diaspora is to say, we need to realize we're not going to home to save anybody. We are going home to collaborate. I think I like to use an example of the nickname for us diaspora in my home country by marriage, Ghana. They call us Bintus, because we have attitudes. I've been to America, I've been to the UK, and so we think we know more than the people at home. We got to get rid of that Bintu mentality. I think in Burundi, they call them come-froms. So the Bintu and the come-from mentality, we have to get rid of that. We go home with the right attitude, we mentor each other. They may know more about what's going on at home than we do. But when we work together in collaboration, we find that ultimately we have better results. So that's our plan for mentorship. But I think you guys are on the ground. I'm sure if there's any way we can continue to collaborate, that's what it's all about. So it's about mentorship, and opening doors so we can help each other. Right now, the doors are closed. I cannot tell you how many times I've had people call me and they'll say, oh, they need help. I used to be scared of opening those emails because it's always financial. But then when you look at it, they're looking for $50. I mean, $50 is keeping a young man who just graduated from some polytechnic and they need to take a test in order to get a certificate so they can begin to work. So I get a lot of those little requests, and it just really saddens me that we don't have an avenue to address some of these minor issues that are keeping our young people from moving on to the next level. So we must open more doors of communication and just, to the best that we can. I know the diaspora can play a much larger role. So through ADDI, we are hoping to bring in the diaspora and let's just expose each other to each other so we can begin the necessary dialogue.
Well, thank you so much. Gabriel, just very brief, please. Very brief, otherwise our system will close down.
Yes, I think that Her Excellency has basically said everything I wanted to say. One thing I would add is, and we live in a very interconnected world, and the ability to have access to knowledge is more transformative than ever. So right now, you can get a college world-class education online for free, right? All the classes that are available at the top universities, you can get them from anywhere, any country in the world. So what I would say is, if we have the right infrastructure, the youth is going to be able to exploit and go to and get the best and knowledge and practice across the globe. So I'm very optimistic in the sense that the ability and the access to knowledge is now kind of flattened. Whether you live in the US or you live in Africa, you have access to the same resources, given the right amount of internet connectivity. So I think once we can work on our infrastructures, the future for the
I have one recommendation.
Online need. So what I would say is, obviously funding is important, but the ability to have access to knowledge is now much better than it used to be.
Thank you. Please.
May I suggest one young man that I would hope you all can try and reach out when it comes to mentorship. He has an amazing story. His name is Lual. All of you take his name down. Just Google him. Lual Mayem, Ayem. He's a young man who was born when his parents were on their way to northern Uganda as refugees from South Sudan. Raised in a refugee camp for 23 years. It took his mother 3 years to raise $300 to buy him a laptop. When he finally got the laptop, he would walk 5 miles one way to charge the laptop. To make a long story short, the young man taught himself how to build video games. His first video game was called Conflict Resolution. Today, Lual is one of the top world-class video game manufacturers. Look him up. That is a success story. He now lives here in the US. If you need to contact him, feel free to reach out to me. I have his contact details, but you can look him up, read up on him. People like that, I think you should get them as guest speakers to empower other young people, to say you can start with very little. It is precisely because of young people like Lual that I felt that $500 to $1,000 is enough to empower a young youth with an idea. So let's get more people, but I urge all of you to reach out to Lual, see if you can invite him to come be a guest speaker, but his story is so inspiring. It can let others realize you don't need a lot of money to make it. Start with what little you have, look at your environment, but please talk to Lual. I am certainly inspired by him.
Well, thank you so much. The connection has started working. We will do that. And thanks for the promise that if we need, we can reach out to you for the connection. That's also through collaboration that we're able to reach you and get to you. At the beginning, I described the stages it took, and right now you're here with us, and we've enjoyed it. Very, very wonderful. Discussing
Actually,
and coming.
since all of you are leaders in your own way, I'm more than happy to give all of you my phone number. Are you ready?
Shoot it out.
It's 615-504-7177. That's US number, which will be +1. Once again, +1 615-504-7177. It's best you shoot me a WhatsApp message. My email, we have failed you, and I'm definitely going to do my part to be there for you. So feel free to reach out to me. If you need me to facilitate you getting somebody, I'm your mother. Feel free to reach out to me.
Amazing Grace, they will sing in America. If I had been there, I think I would have started singing it up. Amazing Grace. That's very wonderful. I think we have really done it, and we're very glad. Meeting at eye level, opening more doors, in memory of what is good, we do something good. Christian, Sylvia, any other harvest we're making tonight? Christian, what do you say?
Every second of this wonderful circle was so enriching. So I can't only say 2, 3 aspects in a few words, which are really enriching my treasure box, what I have learned, what I got from this wonderful circle. One aspect is this communication issue, this how to communicate from the north to the south and vice versa. So this transparency, the honesty and the fairness in all communication from the north to the south, from the south to the north. So this communication aspect, this diplomacy aspect. Another one is this mentality change from being given to give something. So this mentality change is a very important issue I got from this circle. And another one is building an Africa which works for Africans. This is another important aspect element. But this is only a few thoughts, a few ideas from a very, very enriching 1.5 hour circle. So it's so many aspects. These were only 2 or 3 elements out of that. Great, fantastic. You are really great people.
Thank you so much, and thank Rama. It